everyone. Welcome back to Infernal Intercourse. I'm here again with Pastor Brian.
Hello.
And this is our episode for some of our favorite scenes in Lucifer. So I'll throw it over to Brian to hear, first of all, at least one of his favorite scenes.
Okay. So one of my things is I have just a terrible memory and I can't ever keep anything separate. And so I did kind of go back and look over some summaries and some videos about it. And it really occurred to me that it's always about the character with me. And what's funny about that is it's not surprising then. It's not surprising to me that like Lucifer and Chloe are my least interest. I find them the least interesting, right? So any characters that involve them, except I have to say that season 5, episode 1, that one drove me crazy, but two, the progression on the characters with Mazikeen realizing how lonely she was, and with Lucifer having that moment. I don't know if he explicitly acknowledged it, but when the person he was investigating their death said to him, "Is this about me or you?" Those were some of my favorite scenes of all time in Lucifer. So I guess I do kind of have Lucifer and Maze in there, but my boy is Daniel. I love Daniel, and I really, as I watched over, I really do think I saw Daniel has grown and changed, but really mostly the way people look at him and treat him has changed more. Maybe it's just the subtle changes he needed to make. But I love it, and my favorite, I think, of all the ones I reviewed today was that scene where M.Div was out of sorts, and I don't remember if it was when they were doing Lucifer, when Lucifer and Daniel were partnering against Daniel's better judgment, I think. But they ended up going. They were trying to find out about the murder of 2 young ladies, and they went to basically an orgy party. And they're supposed to be nondescript. And of course, Daniel can't help looking like a police officer. Lucifer, M.Div is making a huge scene because he's pouring all his emotion into like getting drunk and blowing it up. And then of course Lucifer is being way too serious about being cool or whatever. So it was just funny, and it did bring up something. Again, I'm all about character, and it did make me. I felt very familiar. I went to all boys high school. I've lived in recovery homes, and the language was very brotastic. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of avoiding feelings that's going on when guys are teasing each other and constantly talking about who's better at sex and who's better at sports and who's better dressed and who do women like better and all that kind of thing. But it was just a fun scene for me because I also have really grown to like M.Div. Back then, I did not like M.Div. So that was maybe one of the first episodes where I really enjoyed his presence watching him. It was a little overdone. But of course, I think through the whole thing, I tend to relate to Daniel. So I'll throw that one out there as my first favorite scene.
Okay. Yeah, one of the ones that, if I say my favorite scenes, one that's going to jump into my mind first, and usually it's the funnier scenes that are my favorite. Yeah. But it's the flashback with him and Candy, like when they first meet in Las Vegas, and they decided that maybe for whatever reason he's in her apartment now, and they both have the little blankets with the sleeves on, the Snuggies. And one of them has a bottle of liquor and the other one has the carton of ice cream, and they're like comparing their problems, and then they switch and they hand off the liquor and the ice cream to the other one. And, it's just like, okay, so he's just like hanging out on this lady's couch and they're like, commiserating over ice cream and whiskey. And I just find that scene very funny.
Yeah. There are a lot of really funny scenes. And sometimes they probably were interesting to me. It was funny to go back and re-see them because in the watching, I do remember not being particularly taken by those scenes. But obviously, it's a much funnier show than I pay attention to when I'm watching it. I'm probably just way too analytical or something, way too watching the character, and I'm not catching a lot of the jokes. But the other scene. Do you know what it is? I think a lot of the scenes I like are because they were a really cool scene in the middle of stuff going on that I was kind of annoyed with. So I think maybe that's what it does with me. And that one the first flashback to the 30s or whatever, where they're all gumshoes and all that. And Ella in that was so good. But the first scene when you find her, right, and she's in there, what was she, a tire? Is she a mechanic? But anyway, that scene where they come upon her, and it was the part of that episode that I just loved, as opposed to being annoyed.
Okay.
By it. Yeah, I liked that one.
As
Ella is a cool character. There's a lot. I love when is it Azazel? No, the the angel that was involved with Ella. That whole little moment was really cool too. There's a lot of cool moments around Ella.
yeah, she's a great character. Again, she like takes Lucifer to mass, and you're like, okay. So yeah, I like the little funny things. I love when M.Div is like using the little shark vacuum to like pick up his feathers because he's losing all of his feathers. And yet, a few episodes before then, we learned that these feathers are fantastically powerful because Mazikeen uses one to heal him of this deadly wound. It's like, well, you could like stash those things up, right? Because they apparently are very powerful. And yet he's just like vacuuming them up like they're worthless. We can kind of see why Lucifer's throwing away his wings and not keeping his feathers. But, M.Div wants his wings. And as his feathers are coming off, it seems like he's just disposing of these feathers when he wouldn't really do that, but I still like the whole vacuuming him up as Mazikeen's like pounding on the door and about to come in. One of the other scenes I like, though, of course, a lot of them involve Linda because I love Linda.
I love Linda. Yeah.
So almost everything's got Linda in it, but the scene where Chloe comes to ask her, "How can you deal with the supernatural creatures in your life?" Basically, now that I really know that he's not just saying he's the devil, he is the devil. And Linda says, well, there's a lot of bad, but there's a lot of good too. And she's like, I have a best friend and I have this, and, your most interesting patient, and I have this baby. Then she starts panicking and she's like, and I've been told it might have wings. And can a woman even deliver that? Will insurance pay for it? Who knows? And she starts kind of losing it. But the list of things that she's getting from her relationship with Lucifer and Mazikeen and M.Div, I like that scene.
I think that's fascinating characterization because, of course, she's the therapist, but yet she starts to have the anxiety attack and meltdown, right? And physician, heal thyself. But also why she's so much at the middle of so many scenes because, of course, she is the person that's safe for everyone to talk to, right? As a matter of fact, I guess she is the first safe one for Lucifer, right? Is she the first one that Lucifer tells, right? So, I mean, she is the safe one. So it makes sense that a lot of those intimate, cool character moments, including humor, happen with her. I like that a lot. It's interesting when you bring that up because I can't remember the context. You probably will. And I couldn't find it. But when the women go out on the town, and they do that a couple times, but there was one in particular that I felt like it was the first one where they were like, there was no extreme to any of them, but like they were just kind of out chilling and having a good time and maybe commiserating a little bit, but it just was really really good. And I guess it was Maz and Linda and Chloe. I can't remember if yeah, but it was really, I enjoy it. So I seem to enjoy that when they have that kind of, I don't like when it's, you would think I'm really sex positive and it's cool to see gay stuff, but like those scenes of Lucifer and the orgies and all that stuff, it tends to not be that interesting to me.
Yeah.
But when people are kind of bonding, I enjoy those scenes a lot.
Well, I think it's when we talked way back in like episode, I don't know, 6 or 7, when we were discussing the self-destructive behavior of Lucifer and how he seems to have been using sex and drinking and drugs as ways to avoid contemplating his own emotions, right? Because anybody who's apparently working on an average of like 2 separate partners every night has some kind of issue, right? Because you're clearly not trying to make a connection. At the same time, he remembers everybody's name and contact information. So, it's like they aren't things to be used, but at the same time, they're not friends either. But it's like he sort of cares about them in a way. But still, it's those scenes that aren't that interesting because I guess maybe because we don't see those people again, and we have they're just blank. Really, they're actors that walk in, they have a scene, and then they're gone. So they're not like the ones we see week to week to week.
Well, I think even though he's Lucifer, he's doing those very self-destructively, right? Those are those are not ways of being like those things could be done in a healthy, holistic way, but that's not why or how he's doing that.
Right. Right. He's trying to avoid things. So,
Which I think is a great plug for our episode that'll be coming up when we talk about Lucifer again. You know,
okay.
our Satan Halloween special kind of thing.
It might get aired a little bit after Halloween. We'll see. Halloween's not too far away.
No, it's not.
Yeah, yeah. So then I have to say I've been again, Linda's in this scene, but a more serious scene then that I like that I think about is when it's been almost 4 seasons because it's toward the end of season 4, where he finally just yells out, "Why do I hate myself so much?" And it's like, okay, so we've been sitting with this character for nigh on 60 or 70 episodes, and finally he's starting to kind of get a little more self-aware and just say, hey, if I actually want to process all my emotional baggage, then that's going to involve being hurt. And now I realize that part of my problem is I hate myself. So that was sort of a revelation for Lucifer. It's like, yay, finally maybe a big character step forward. So yeah, I did like that.
It's funny when you say that because I have a lot of in season 5 it occurred to me Chloe was making me nuts with just the whining and all that. I just hate that, right? And I hated that about Lucifer, and so I was happy when he got past that. But it's funny when I was thinking about probably another episode or moment that I really enjoyed was and we've talked about like the superpower thing, but I was really highly amused by those nuns with M.Div. I just thought that was hysterical. I mean, I love nuns, so but that was just a really clever little twist. Kudos to whatever writer wrote that up, because that was, especially that first part where you're kind of seeing it happen, and is that really happening what I think is happening? And it was. That was really good. I enjoyed that a lot.
And then how even M.Div. got a little bit more self-aware that, oh, maybe I have this effect on some humans. And then that helps him be more aware of, okay, what does it mean that Chloe doesn't have that reaction to Lucifer? It's not that you were made for him. It's that you're like, he can't mirror you. So when you deal with him, you have to deal with him, right? He can't just depend on you to be sort of like, all sparkly eyed because of his supernatural charisma or whatever. So between the two of you, you actually have to like negotiate an actual relationship. So that was actually a good scene too. There were several good scenes in that episode. And also in the first episode of the 5th season, when we mentioned this one specifically in the superpowers episode, when he finally sends a message to her via a dead body.
I love that moment too. That's the only time with her that I liked the whole season. Yeah.
Yeah, why hasn't he been doing that? I mean, he has superpowers and they could be used, and there's no reason why our characters now, especially that Chloe knows, can't go off to hell, or M.Div. couldn't just fly off to heaven, ask whoever got killed or whatever what needs to be known, and come back and give the answer, because we know she can actually now say, I understand there's a heaven and a hell, and you can go to one, you can go to the other, and go, scare up some witnesses. Let me hear what happened, from their points of view.
That moment is so tightly written. I mean, that's almost Sorkin-like, right? Like, because just the banter between those two is so tight. The acting by the corpse is fantastic. And then how it ends up with Ella coming in and saying, oh, did you move the body? I mean, it just is so tight and so good. That's a great moment. That is. It is.
So are there any other ones you want to mention?
The only thing I would mention is, and I always forget, I call it the Joe My God episode, the one where the belt, right? Like, I just love that whole episode again, probably because it confirms, no matter how much I want to intellectualize it, it confirms my gut of God, how God would see things, right? And so I enjoyed that whole episode and all those moments.
I liked another one just came to mind when they're stuck in season 4 in the nightclub because the guy's got a bomb or whatever, and Lucifer's been shot, and so Chloe and Eve are having this little girl-to-girl talk, And Chloe finally asks her, have you seen his other face or whatever? And are you afraid of it? And Eve's like, why would I be? So it's like the fact that this sort of face is in our culture, supposedly something scary, does not mean that it is universally scary or that it's a problem for everyone. So I like the fact that it wasn't a problem for Eve, but also that she can then has a chance to tell Chloe, it's not a problem for me. Why is it a problem for you? Okay. Yeah, because there were a couple things in the pilot that I did like that they kind of built on. I like the fact that as we're introducing, well, the second introduction of the character, because the first introduction is where he bribes the police officer, right? But so we're kind of establishing him as the bad boy up front. But then immediately we go to the nightclub where he's meeting that singer, and she's all nervous. She's like, well, did I sell my soul to you? He's like, well, what I want with your soul? No, you do owe me a favor. But then the favor that he asks her is for her to get clean. It's not anything that benefits him, so he's, we're seeing him in a second scene with him doing something that's not self-motivated, that he's thinking maybe about someone else rather than himself. And then I like some of the little things they put in there, like when he gets out of the handcuffs and just hands them back to Chloe. And so we see a few cute little scenes. I love the initial, maybe this would be one of my favorite scenes, the initial meeting between him and Trixie in the school. And, he's chatting with her, and just the development of their friendship, right? Because Trixie loves him, Trixie loves Maze, and even if she doesn't really know who they are really, that she just trusts them and loves both of them, and they kind of love her back, right? Maze certainly loves her. I don't know if Lucifer knows kind of what to do with her, but he seems to be very kind of protective of her, and I kind of wonder if it's just the way that writers want, all adult characters need to protect small children or something, or if we're trying to say something about, in hell, we've been told that before the age of 12 or 13, you don't get sent to hell in this show. So there aren't any children in hell. So they literally have no experience with them. So this fact that now this little 7-year-old kid, at least in the pilot, is sort of latching herself onto them is kind of funny, but also kind of sweet. So join us again next time, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, I'll be looking for those comments of your favorite moments in the comments, because I really want to hear the feedback.
Yeah, let us know. We want to know.
Yeah. Bye-bye.